The Oxford Dictionary defines the word heel as the back part of the human foot below the ankle, but we here at Cultaholic are here to tell you the things that they don't want you to know. And let you into a big old secret. A heel in wrestling is insider speak for a bad guy. Shh. Don't tell anyone. Kayfabe isn't dead yet. The oldest trick in the book for a promoter of any combat sport, not least the weird hybrid of sports and entertainment that is professional wrestling, is to promote a match with a bad guy people want to see punched or kicked in the face. The most lucrative combat sports match of all time wouldn't have existed without the pompous, win-at-all-costs arrogant heel persona of Floyd Money Mayweather, and the same can be said for much of WWE's history of memorable matches, moments, and pay-per-view lineups. In wrestling, some of the characters are predestined to be heels, while others are born out of their performers' less likable personality traits. And in the WWE, the heel is most often remembered for providing the more visceral of audience reactions, for antagonizing one too many a grandma, and for being the perfect foil to a good guy worth cheering for. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 best WWE career heels. Join us! Number 10, the Honky Tonk Man. The Honky Tonk Man was such a despicable heel that the WWE had him hold the Intercontinental title hostage between 1987 and 1988 for 454 days. The all-time longest reign in history. It was a move of genius on their part, as at the time fans clamoured to see the moment when the pompous Elvis Presley knockoff would finally be knocked off his perch, and the WWE successfully built an entire mid-card around his dastardly shenanigans. The Tonk was such an unlikable fella that he still insists on playing the character on Twitter and at conventions in the current day. He was never all that great in the ring, and he probably didn't deserve to be the all-time longest reigning IC champion, but if ever there was a hated wrestler who personifies what it's like to live the gimmick, the Honky Tonk Man is that wrestler. Number 9, Ric Flair. Ric Flair's 2 WWE runs are made up of less time than one might expect, given the mountainous history of the Nature Boy's wrestling career, but in his short stint in 1992, and particularly in his run alongside Triple H in the WWE in the 2000s, Flair was able to show hints of the best ever wrestling heel character he developed in WCW and the NWA to add all-time great WWE heel to his already brimming resume. Interestingly, Flair's retirement run was while working as a babyface, but given that his version of a babyface was a low-blowing, kiss-stealing, limousine-riding son of a gun, then we suspect his inclusion shan't ruffle many feathers. Number 8, Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase was such a dick that he once promised a child a great $500 if he could bounce a basketball 10 times, then kick the ball away on the 9th bounce. DiBiase was a heel persona through and through. His moniker, the $1 Million Man, just about said it all, but when he introduced the $1 Million Championship and subsequently paid off classic superstar after classic superstar on his way to the top of the card, his place in history was taken and his legacy sealed as an all-time great WWE bad guy. And who could forget that laugh? Oh, that laugh. Number 7, Randy Orton. It's arguable that Randy Orton and his huge viper hasn't been a career heel at all, and that in fact he's been a babyface for just as much of his run. But if you are to look back at Orton's WWE career with any sort of fondness, then those moments you arc back to are likely those of his bad guy heel days. The times he was spitting in Mick Foley's face, RKOing Hulk Hogan onto a car bonnet, sadistically kissing Stephanie McMahon after knocking her out. Orton as a good guy is boring, laboured, and clearly uninspired, waiting for his moment to grab a crowd-popping RKO out of nowhere, but heel Orton is often much more arrogant, sadistic, and natural to Orton the person, and the matches he produces are often of a much higher quality. Whereas Orton's 15-year career to this point may be looked at overall as an impressive one, his heel days in isolation deserve far greater recognition than just another top guy. Number 6, Edge. The ultimate opportunist, the rated R superstar, the live sex celebration performing, spearing Mick Foley through a flaming table, marrying his way through Vicky Guerrero to the top of the roster, sleeping with one of his best friend's long-term girlfriends, Edge is an 11-time WWE World Champion. Need more be said? This dastardly heel, whose career was boosted off the back of sleeping with Lita while she was still in a relationship with long-term boyfriend Matt Hardy, is best remembered for moments in which he took an opportunity when nobody else saw it coming, cashing in 2 Money in the Bank briefcases to become world champion, including one after stealing said briefcase from an unfortunate Mr. Kennedy. Sure, during an early run, he ran wild with childhood hero Hulk Hogan as a babyface, and he even had a brief period of playing the good guy at the end of his career too, but everyone's secret wrestler crush was always too good looking and too damn good at being a borderline psychotic creep that almost his entire career was spent as a heel, and often the top heel in the company. Number 5, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has reinvented himself so many times that he's still one of the biggest names in the industry nearly 30 years after his professional debut. The current New Japan Pro Wrestling star has donned many a cap on both sides of the babyface heel spectrum over the years, but never has he been more over than while playing a bad guy. Whether it be the monotone best in the world at what I do Jericho, the pompous self-proclaimed savior that was Y2J, or the list-making best friend Jericho of his most recent run. In his illustrious career, Jericho has been crowned champion more times than you can probably count. Try it, you won't be able to, trust me, but has never been WWE World Champion as a babyface. Jericho, despite all his flash in-ring prowess and babyface good looks, was simply born to provoke audiences and was even nearly arrested for attempting to do so in Brazil back in 2015 when he kicked the nation's flag, an act that almost incited a riot.
Please accept my apology for stepping on your wonderful flag.
Y2J Chris Jericho is beloved, sure, but mostly for being an all-time great WWE heel. Number 4, Brock Lesnar. It's so easy to hate Brock Lesnar. He shows up for work, doesn't say a word, and goes home again with what is rumored to be $500,000 to his name. If we, the so-called WWE Universe, are lucky enough, we'll get a match 4 or 5 times per year, where he'll inevitably win via suplexes and more suplexes in short-lived encounters, for which he'll take home $500,000. He's presented as the ultimate prize fighter, the non-WWE conformist who's there to take home money, not to live his dream, please the fans, or achieve anything of real substance, and it sort of works. Lesnar, with advocate Paul Heyman, has been at the very top of the totem pole in the WWE since the second he returned, and has been gifted title reigns and moments that any heel in the history of the business would die for. Only he could be such a dick as to end The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. Even as a youngster, Lesnar was often presented as a heel, owing much of that positioning to his threatening demeanor, natural physical prowess, and gorilla-like face. Who could cheer a guy like that? He's hardly someone you want meeting your poorly child at a Make-A-Wish event, is he? Number 3, Roddy Piper. The most iconic WWE superstar of the rock and wrestling era, not to be Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper was a revolutionary heel whose work is still mimicked and remixed in the world of wrestling today. Arguably the greatest talker of all time, Piper just had a way of getting into his opponent's head, and he always had a loose cannon vibe that would switch his sarcastic and pompous persona into a dangerous and scary one in the space of one small glance or just a couple of words. Piper was so good, he was asked to return to the WWE and host talk show segments right up to his death. Providing memorable moments opposite the likes of The Shield as part of what would be his final swan song, never once losing his touch for creating a believable level of unhinged that would have you invest in his every word. Number 2, Vince McMahon. During a time when the greatest anti-hero babyface in the history of the business was wreaking havoc on the WWF, he was opposed by arguably the most believable on-screen heel figure in the history of wrestling, the owner of the company, the head booker, the head of creative, the man in charge of everyone's fortunes and every storyline twist and turn, Mr. McMahon. When Bret Hart infamously wrote the letters WCW in the air live on WWE pay-per-view and spat in the face of Vince McMahon, the worst kept secret in WWE was out. The guy who used to commentate on the show is the owner of the company. What followed was Bret Screwed Bret and the genesis of the Mr. McMahon character, the ultimate villain to Stone Cold Steve Austin's all-time great babyface, the evil necessary for fans to truly invest in those who opposed him, ensuring that while everyone wanted to see what he'd be involved in next, they wouldn't go as far as to cheer the guy. Where the Mr. McMahon character stops and Vince McMahon begins is anyone's guess, and we've all heard a shoot interview or two that attempted to paint him as the spawn of Satan. But whether it's all character or all human underneath, Mr. McMahon is an all-time great WWE heel. Number 1, Triple H. Starting as a posh aristocratic Frenchman and transitioning through a solid anti-establishment age in which many people forget he was the heel, Triple H came into his own in the late 1990s by establishing his The Game moniker and crawling over the likes of great babyfaces Mick Foley and The Rock on his way to the top. Fast forward just a little while to his days as the head of Evolution, and the boss's son-in-law was almost exclusively world champion on Raw for a year and a half, playing his on-screen character in such a way that leaned into his close connections to the boardroom. He was always a consummate professional in the ring, and the sort of wrestler who'd 9 times out of 10 produce a top-level match, but in being married to Stephanie McMahon, the heir to the company, there have always been rumors of him using his sway to bury various wrestlers. In being the COO of the company and the head of talent relations, and having been a part of creative meetings since the late 90s, around the time of his first big push, Triple H has adopted many of the burdens of his father-in-law, one of them being the natural nuclear level of heat that comes with such a role. Like Mr. McMahon, Triple H has used this to his benefit, creating an all-time despicable heel whose dastardly ways transcend that of his character's actions and into backstage politics. Only Triple H has gone one step further than the boss by being an all-time great in-ring performer at the same time. So that's our list. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and you can follow me on Twitter here. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.